we like to keep them all in the same color pattern, is salt a mixture? Okay, so that is a very great question. Okay, so salts in general, if I remember correctly, are, when we refer to the periodic table, are usually anions paired with the alkali metal. So alkali metal plus anion, that will give you your salt. The reason why I say this is because you'll see actually a lot of different things, or is it the halogens? We'll see how this goes. If we have, because the reason why I say this is because NaCl, and this is a salt, okay? Potassium chloride is also a salt. I think it's actually anything with chloride, which they define as salt. In fact, let me see here. Definition, chemistry definition of salt. Because we don't want to just limit this explanation to just working with NaCl, because there's different types of, I guess, salts, but you'll see they all have a certain common element to where you can say whether it's a mixture or it's going to be a compound. Chemistry definition of a salt. Okay. An ionic assembly of cations and anions. Oh, well then. So it doesn't have to be even an alkali metal. In fact, anything really can be considered a salt. That's actually good information because it still works. Cation and, so I guess I have the last part right. So that's good. So it doesn't have to be any specific type of metal. It's just alkali, well, not alkali. It doesn't have to be any specific type of metal. It can just be any cation. Okay, plus anion. So the reason why I say that is because, exactly, NaCl is a salt, KCl is a salt, Ca, SO4 is also a salt. I'm trying to remember, it's SO4. Yep. Calcium sulfate, that's also salt. In fact, let me check here. Calcium sulfate salt. And people are asking if it's safe to eat. Probably not. But yeah, CaSO4, that's also salt. I can keep going on. The list becomes extensive because if we're talking about cation and anion, specifically speaking, like, you know, the metals with, so we want an ionic bond typically. I think that's a key part. We want an ionic bond because those are what form cations and anions. You're no longer sharing the electrons. What's happening is that the cation gives the electron to the anion. You'll notice that, like, for example, if you say something like, let's see, carbon dioxide, CO2, okay, this is not a salt because this is more of a, these are polar bonds in there rather than actually ionic bonds. So that's the key definition here. You need an ionic bond, okay? But exactly, the list is quite extensive because we have a lot of metals here that can contribute to being an ionic bond, and we have a lot of combination of non-metals or anions that can be used in order to make this salt. Now, with that all being said, the thing you notice is that you have this as one of the compounds, this another compound this another compound. The key thing though is that when you think of the sodium chloride salt, like the first example, okay, it's just going to be a, I guess, a composition of only that, okay? There's nothing else in there. And the reason why that's key is because of the fact that a mixture, okay, the definition of mixture is that it needs two or more different things floating in there, okay? So this is an example of a mixture. Think of like the air you breathe. That's a mixture of oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and other atmospheric gases. But when you think of salt, all that's in there, well, specifically table salt, would be sodium chloride, okay? When you think of potassium chloride, like that salt, that's all that's in there. Calcium sulfate, this salt, this is all that's in there, okay? So with that being said, it's not going to look like this diagram here. It's actually just going to look like this. This would be, in a sense, your table salt. You know, you have your container, okay, where you shake out the salt, and all there is in there is a bunch of NaCl molecule pieces, okay? Nothing else. So with that being said, salt is not a mixture, okay? So the reason why I have to explain what salt is composed of is because, for example, like they can throw a lot of, I guess, basic terminology towards like, is air a mixture, is salt a mixture, is water a mixture. And so like for air, like I just said, it has different compounds in it. Salt, depending on what you're dealing with, type of salt, if they say sodium chloride, that, like table salt, that is not a mixture. Now, if they were to give you a question that said this had sodium chloride and potassium chloride in it, that would be a mixture. Now you have two different salts mixed together. That would be a mixture, and also quite unsafe to eat, I'm guessing. You don't want to eat potassium chloride. Maybe you do. But I do know that the one that's true and tested and safe is our table salt sodium chloride. But exactly. For salts, the only way it's in the mixture is if they tell you with detail that it's composed of at least two different types of salts. Okay? So yes, let's see how we did. Common salt, table salt, is formed of sodium reacts with chlorine. Okay? And with that being said, the common salt is a compound, a type of pure substance, and not a mixture. Okay? So with that being said, it's a ionic compound because of the ionic bond I mentioned earlier. That is what table salt is. The reason why it's a compound is because if you zoomed in to one of these pieces, you'd have the chlorine part and you'd have the sodium part, okay? They're stuck together. And that's what a compound is that when you look at the molecular structure, there's two different things there. There's at least there's at least two things there, okay? Because this is like, for example, if we said like helium gas, that is an atomic element just by itself, that dot right here. This would be helium, okay? Oxygen, alright, would be two of the same dots, okay? And this is what we call a molecular element, okay? And then if we have salt, which is NaCl, alright, as it's defined in this picture down here, this is what we call a molecular compound because it's compounded of two different things. So you can still have two or more things together, but if they're the same thing, it's considered a molecular element, not a compound. Okay? So with that being said, this is correct. Salt is indeed not a mixture. This is on question 4 now. Okay. All right.